Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Here are the stories we're following today.
Karen, we begin with a presidential race in uncharted territory. After weeks of mounting pressure from lawmakers and donors within his own party, President Joe Biden has bowed out of the 2024 race and thrown his support behind his vice president, Kamala Harris, to take his place at the top of the Democratic ticket. Some Democrats have been quick to get behind the president's decision, including Progressive Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts.
I'm endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris because she's ready to step up, bring our party together, go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, and win in November.
Along with Senator Warren, former President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, the 2016 nominee, are also backing Harris. Former President Barack Obama put out a statement praising Biden, but stopped short of endorsing the vice president. Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut says this will not be a coronation.
This process will be open and orderly and responsive to the delegates and to all Americans who elected them.
And several Democrats who had been seen as contenders if Biden were to step aside have also endorsed Harris. They include Governors Gretchen Whitmer, Gavin Newsom, and Josh Shapiro. But an aide to West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who recently turned independent, says he is thinking of rejoining the Democratic Party to mount his own presidential campaign now that Biden is out.
Well, Nathan, Harris has to still officially secure the nomination, but if she does, who will be her running mate? Bloomberg's John Tucker looks at that side of the story. John.
And Karen, politicians in the swing states drawing particular scrutiny. Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan would generate the first ever all-female ticket in the race for the top office. She handily won re-election in 2022. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, a key Democratic power broker with his family's multi-billion-dollar fortune. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is a rising young star in the party with strong approval ratings. And Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, a former astronaut and Gulf War veteran, he would lend significant national security bona fides to the ticket. Also being mentioned is the Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg. He would be the first openly gay man to be nominated for vice president. Meantime, Joe Biden's exit and the endorsement of Kamala Harris generated an avalanche of cash. In the first few hours online on Sunday, Democratic donations totaled at least $50 million. That would mark the single biggest day since the 2020 election. John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, John, thank you. Now, former President Donald Trump's aides weren't surprised by President Biden's exit. The Trump campaign had been developing contingency plans to take on Vice President Harris. Speaking to Fox News before President Biden's announcement, Donald Trump made his feelings about Harris clear.
She's not a competent person. She shouldn't be president. She's being laughed at all over the world.
The Trump campaign says it can beat Harris by playing up her leading role tackling immigration policy in the Biden administration. Trump co-campaign manager Chris LaCivita has called Harris the border czar and has said he would love to use that message against her.
Well, Nathan, Harris is expected to hit the campaign trail right away, and we get more with Bloomberg's Bill Ferries.
She's going to be the face of this White House for quite a few things. We know she's going to be before a podium at 11:30 a.m. in Washington at a pre-scheduled for college athletes. She will very likely be very involved in Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Washington later this week. I would expect to see her in every briefing that the president is in.
And Bloomberg's Bill Ferries notes that Benjamin Netanyahu is scheduled to address Congress on Wednesday.
And Karen, praise is coming in for President Biden from around the globe. We get that part of the story from Bloomberg's Ed Baxter.
They come in as tributes from heads of state. Keir Starmer, UK Prime Minister. I respect President Biden's decision. I look forward to us working together during the remainder of his presidency. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Thanks to him, transatlantic cooperation is close, NATO is strong, and the U.S. is a good and reliable partner for us. Isaac Herzog, Israeli President. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to Joe Biden for his friendship and steadfast support for the Israeli people over his decades-long career. And Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I've known President Biden for years. He's a great man, and everything he does is guided by his love for his country. Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Ed, thank you. Well, investors have been amassing wagers on Donald Trump's return to the White House for weeks, trimming holdings of long-term U.S. bonds and buying Bitcoin. Now they're considering whether Biden's exit from the race boosts the odds of a Democrat victory. And Bloomberg's Jeff Bellinger takes a look at some key sectors in the spotlight.
Electric vehicles will be in focus. The Biden administration has made a strong push toward electrification of transportation, while Trump has said he will entirely reverse Biden's EV policy. Private prison stocks have risen recently as they were seen benefiting in a Republican sweep, given Trump's tough stance on immigration. Trump's enthusiastic stance on cryptocurrency has made this group a bet on his presidency. Regulation-heavy sectors such as financials are seen doing better under Republicans, who are seen as more lenient than Democrats. Healthcare is yet another regulation-heavy group that may face easier rules under Republicans. And renewable energy and green energy-focused stocks will also be in the spotlight, since it is yet another point of contention between Republicans and Democrats. Jeff Bellinger, Bloomberg Radio.
Thank you, Jeff. As for markets this morning, we're seeing a bit of dollar weakness. Treasuries are rising after President Biden's end to his re-election bid. Stock futures are higher, led by tech stocks. Investors will have their hands full dealing with earnings this week in the tech sector. Tesla and Apple will be the first of the so-called Magnificent Seven to report tomorrow.
Well, Nathan, Delta Airlines is apologizing for canceling thousands of flights during the busiest travel weekend of the summer, as many of its systems failed following the catastrophic CrowdStrike outage on Friday. The Atlanta-based carrier stood out as the airline worst affected by the technology meltdown, according to aviation data firm Cirium. U.S. carriers, which form the world's biggest air travel market, were by far the hardest hit among airlines globally. And it's time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. For that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. Local politicians are reacting to President Joe Biden dropping out of the 2024 presidential race. New York Mayor Eric Adams, in a statement, says America owes a debt of gratitude to President Joe Biden for his decades of service. He and his team took us out of COVID, stabilized the country, and restored the soul of the nation. President Biden is now again delivering for the American people by passing the torch at a critical moment when the country needs strong leadership from a new generation. In New Haven, Connecticut, Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal praised Biden's decision to bow out.
He has helped to cement his legacy of leadership and vision with this decision.
Meanwhile, Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik of New York's 21st District says if Joe Biden can't run for re-election, he is unable and unfit to serve as President of the United States. He must immediately resign. U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle will testify before a congressional committee today about the recent failed assassination attempt against former President Trump at a Pennsylvania rally. House Oversight Chairman James Comer says today's hearing will be the beginning of the process to get answers for the American people, including how the gunman made it on top of a roof. Cheadle says her agency is reviewing its actions. More than a dozen congressional Republicans, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, say Cheadle needs to resign.
Director Cheadle has shown the world and said that she has different priorities. She needs to go.
Speaker Johnson was on ABC's This Week, heard Sundays on Bloomberg. There are fresh warnings that smoke from fires in the West are impacting air quality across the region. A wildfire in Riverside County, California, is burning homes and triggering evacuation orders. Riverside County Councilmember Sean Mill.
We'd ask that you stay out of the area, and if you've been asked to evacuate, please comply with the evacuation orders for your safety and those of our first responders.
Forecasters warn that smoke from the western fires, along with smoke from Canadian wildfires, will push farther east today, bringing hazy skies across the northern plains. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg, Karen.
All right, Michael, thank you. Time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update with John Stashower. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. Last round of the last major of the year. Terrific one for the 30-year-old from San Diego, Xander Schauffele. A bogey-free 65. That's the same score he had in the final round 2 months ago in Louisville when he won the PGA Championship. That was his first career major victory after being 0 for 29 at Royal Troon in Scotland. Schauffele added the Open Championship.
Always dreamt of doing it. That walk-up 18 truly is the coolest with the yellow leaderboards and the fans and the standing ovation. It really is the coolest, one of the coolest feelings I've ever had in my life. I got chills walking down and quickly had to zap myself back into focus because the tournament wasn't over yet.
Schauffele finished 9 under par, 1 by 2 over Justin Rose and Billy Horschel. Yankees and Rays will conclude their 4-game series this afternoon at the stadium, but Tampa Bay, 2 wins over the weekend, assured of at least a split, so the Yanks have won only one series since mid-June. The Rays, who hit 4 home runs Saturday, came back with 4 more and won 6-4 in defeat. A long 3-run shot for Aaron Judge, his 35th. Dodgers last night hit 6 home runs. Shohei Ohtani, his 30th. LA finished a sweep of the Red Sox 9-6. Orioles lost 3-2 in Texas, so Baltimore remains 2 games ahead of the Yankees. Mets lost in Miami 4-2. 3-run homer for the Marlins. Jazz Chisholm, his name's been mentioned often in trade rumors. The series ends tonight. Nationals beat the Reds 5-2 on a 3-run homer in the 8th by Nats rookie phenom James Wood. Induction day in Cooperstown. Adrian Beltre voted in his first time on the ballot, joined by Todd Helton, Joe Mauer, and Jim Leland became the 23rd to make it as a manager. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Karen, Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager. President Biden's decision to abandon his re-election campaign and endorse Vice President Kamala Harris is setting off a 4-month sprint for Democrats to keep their bid for holding onto the White House alive and to hold off a Trump-Vance campaign that had been on the rise since the Republican convention. For more, we are joined this morning by Terry Haynes, the founder of Pangea Policy. Terry, we've had an evening and an early morning to wrap our heads around President Biden's decision here. Obviously, a major shakeup, and the president has, of course, endorsed his vice president. Do you see the Democratic Party getting quickly behind a Vice President Kamala Harris campaign, or is this going to be a fight?
Good morning, Nathan. I do think that they're going to coalesce around Harris fairly quickly. Harris needed to do the first thing that I think she's already done, which is actually take on the mantle of the nominee and act like she's the nominee. And I think that's very important. If one thing that we've learned over the last month from Democrats is that they're not very good at telling people no or please stop to their face. So Harris needs to fill a gap, and I think she's doing that. I think it's also in Harris's benefit to have a situation where most of the focus and most of the competition goes towards the vice presidential nomination, and I think you're seeing both of those things today by and large. It is important for them to proceed by talking a lot about and to the delegates, though, because one less obvious factor here in Biden's decision was that the delegates were not going to stand for virtually nominating Biden. That wasn't going to happen, and that delegate revolt was key in Biden's decision.
Now, the president did win the support of 99% of the pledge delegates. With him endorsing Vice President Harris, do they immediately go to her, or do they have an open decision to make?
No, they do have their own decision to make, and that's a very smart question, because they are pledged. So what's going to end up having to happen is that either he releases his delegates, and then they automatically coalesce around Harris, or the rules of the convention are tweaked to speed Harris's nomination. I think it's probably going to end up being the first. They don't want to get into a situation where they open up the convention rules.
How seriously do you take this balloon that's been floated by aides to Senator Manchin that he might be thinking about a race now?
I have great professional admiration for Senator Manchin and his method of practicing politics. my view of this, generally speaking, is that firstly, the senator wants something in terms of in exchange for his support. I don't know what that would be just now, but he wants something. Secondly, he's trying to make the point that the rush towards progressivism that he thinks Harris embodies, a lot of the people that would support Harris embodies, run the risk of losing the election because they will forget the broad middle that they need, the independents in particular, in order to get there. So he arrives with buckshot in two different ways.
Does that point to a vice presidential running mate selection process that Vice President Harris might be thinking through right now? We heard Senator Manchin talk about the deep bench that could be there for the Democratic Party. Does that include a potential running mate for Vice President Harris?
Yeah, I think so. You know, they need to balance. They need a ticket balancer in some way, and I put it with one of your colleagues yesterday. The Captain Obvious analysis here is to say that what he needs is a swing state governor, or what she needs is a swing state governor. Excuse me, and I think that's probably the case. Yeah, so I would look at people like Governor Whitmer of Michigan, Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania as filling that need, not just because they're swing states, but because they are fluent in what I'll call center speak, the ability to appeal to and have a voting record that tracks their appeal from exactly the kind of voters that might be wariest of Harris.
Just 30 seconds left, Terry. Is President Biden just a 4-month lame duck now?
Yes, he is. It's a situation where he'll continue to exercise the powers of the presidency, and his presence will, frankly, be a somewhat of a drag on the Harris ticket due to the fact that he dropped out under these circumstances.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Today, your morning brief on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed at 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, and Bloomberg 960 in San Francisco.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, SiriusXM, the iHeartRadio app, and on Bloomberg.com. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.